Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified. In another one of these sessions, we assemble here to first take a recap over the hot topics of the week, and then second to review those topics and add some value to our understanding. So for the help and support of the students, we collected and curated close to 16 topics from the preliminary standpoint and close to 10 topics from the mains standpoint. And along with this, the DNS provides you two more additional features. First, we discuss the questions with respect to the mains examination, and then second, we have incorporated a new thing, that is the summary of important editorials that are covered in the regular DNS sessions. So please go and watch those sessions also. And without further ado, let us begin this session. On Monday, that is 29th of January, the session was taken by Pooja ma'am. And from the preliminary standpoint, we took four topics. First one was with respect to Simlipal Tiger Reserve. And you must be remembering where the Simlipal Tiger Reserve is located. Another issue that was taken from the preliminary standpoint was with respect to acid rain. Then with respect to end-to-end encryption, because this was recently in news. And then the fourth aspect that was covered was with respect to state guarantees or sovereign guarantees. Then from the mains standpoint, we took the topic with respect to National Asset Reconstruction Company, and then with respect to Judicial Independence. The first one is important with respect to your GS paper 3, that is economy and overall economic development of the country. And then second topic is important with respect to your GS paper 2 syllabus, that is important organs, separation of power, judiciary, and issues arising out of the functioning of various institutions. So the first topic that we took that day was with respect to a prominent tiger reserve in Odisha. Why was this in news? Because certain tigers were found in the particular tiger reserve that is located in Mayurbhanj district. And because of the finding of certain tigers which had a deeper and darker, denser strips, the CM of particular state announced a tiger safari in that particular tiger reserve. So what are the key important points or key important takeaways from that particular news is that we have we have curated and listed various national parks and wildlife sanctuaries for you to remember. So wildlife sanctuaries are not that important from the standpoint of your preliminary examination, but UPSC is very curious when it comes to testing your knowledge with respect to let us say biosphere reserves, let us say tiger reserves, so on and forth. So key takeaway over here to remember is that there are only two tiger reserves over there in the state of Odisha. First one being Simlipal Tiger Reserve, on which we also framed certain questions with respect to your preliminary examination. And then second national park that is located in the state of Odisha is Satkosia Tiger Reserve. So you must remember these two names. And another prominent significant, where is the location? First one being Simlipal is located over here. Let me change the color of my pen. First one is Simlipal. Simlipal is located over here, the largest one. And then Satkosia is located over here with numbering 9, that is in the central part of Odisha. Right. So another takeaway point is that there is a wildlife sanctuary by the name Sunabeda Wildlife Sanctuary, and Sunabeda Wildlife Sanctuary has been proposed to be converted into another tiger reserve. And this, if the proposals are accepted, then this Sunabeda Wildlife Sanctuary will be converted into a tiger reserve, and it will be serving as the third tiger reserve of state of Odisha. Where is the location of Sunabeda Wildlife Sanctuary? Here. And you must remember that this particular area is adjoining to the state of Chhattisgarh, and as soon as a national park or wildlife sanctuary is formed in the contiguous region between two states, it again becomes a point of inquiry for the UPSC civil services examination. So only three key points to remember over here. First one being, first national park, first tiger reserve over there is Simlipal Tiger Reserve. Second being Satkosia Tiger Reserve, and the third one being Sunabeda Tiger Reserve, that is yet to be declared a tiger reserve. At present, it is a wildlife sanctuary. Then second aspect that we covered that day was with respect to the concept of acid rain. So concept of acid rain was very much covered in detail, all the scientific and technological aspects with respect to acid rain, its socio-cultural impact, its human impact, its ecological impact, so on and forth, were already covered in the primary video. Now the only takeaway point here are what are the steps that can be taken to prevent the notion of acid rain. Obviously, we cannot take any steps to prevent acid rain, for which the reason is natural phenomena, but what we can do is that we can control or curb our emissions. The first concept is with respect to hydro desulfurization of fuel. Currently, the fuel that we are using, especially in the context of diesel fuel contains huge and enormous amounts of sulfur, and when this sulfur is emitted out of the exhausts of your sports utility vehicles, this sulfur contributes to the overall production of H2S or hydrogen sulfide gas, and then after a while, when this gas mixes with the cloud, acid rain is bound to get formed. So one of the steps to prevent acid rain is, first is hydro desulfurization of fuel. Then second is obviously coal switching. First one was with respect to diesel, right? Second one is with respect to coal switching. Now concept of coal switching again is a new concept that has gained currency in the recent times. Coal switching, basically it does not mean anything that is quite amusing, but it just means that you should switch from coal, that is a traditional source of fuel, towards modern and cleaner sources of fuel, such as, let us say, biogas. It could be renewable energy in the form of solar energy or wind energy, right? And then there are emerging technologies but with respect to prevention of sulfur from becoming a part of acid rain. What is that technology all about? The technology is all about using potassium to remove sulfur. However, the limitation with this technology, which is also the limitation with almost all the emerging technology, is that this technology, first, it is only available at the laboratory level as of now, and then there are challenges with respect to the funding of this particular technology. So, but the point to remember is that potassium can be successfully used to desulfurize the fuel, right? Next, the third topic that was taken was with respect to state guarantees or sovereign guarantees. So why was this topic important? It is important in the context of recently Reserve Bank of India has come out with a particular recommendations which are to be followed by the state governments while extending their sovereign guarantees to their PSUs, and with a specific reference to the PSUs which are facing kind of lack of productive work, right? So what is the concept of state guarantees? State guarantee is a kind of guarantee that is taken by the state on the behalf of one of its agencies. Maybe in this context the agency can be a PSU, because PSU code bank is not ready to give directly loan to the PSU, so state is giving a guarantee on its own behalf that you give loan to the PSU, and we, in case it is a contingent liability, which means that in case the PSU is not able to return that money, let us say 100 crores or so, then in that case state governments will return the money on its behalf. But the problem which were very well discussed in this particular video is the moral hazards, the financial instability that it curates, and the amount of financial burden that it creates is to the tune of 9 lakh crores. So these are the problems with respect to the state guarantees, and this is this is a recent cause of concern for us. So adding further value to the already happened discussion, what are certain recommendations that could be followed? The recommendations with respect to the RBI working paper were already very well discussed in the video. Now, in this context, certain value addition that can be done is that central government had also come up with its guarantee policy. See, PSUs are a phenomena, right? PSUs, both central government and state governments have their own PSUs. So, on similar points, central government was also facing this kind of problem, and they came up with a certain policy with respect to financing or guaranteeing their PSUs. So what we can suggest or we can give in the way forward is that, say, on similar grounds, there should be a policy with respect to state government PSUs as well. The key points that are there in the central government guarantee policy is that there should be a concept of prioritization. Now, what do we mean by prioritization? Is that, let us say there are two PSUs, PSU A and PSU B. State government should have their own priorities, and priorities will be the function of their own commitments, their own market background, so on and forth, the demand and supply of the products in that particular state. So if, let us say, PSU A is not performing that well and PSU B is little bit more performing than PSU A, so what should be there? There should be a concept of prioritization, that it will not happen that you'll just keep on giving the sovereign guarantee of crores of rupees to non-performing PSUs as well. You should have a concept of prioritization, that yes, this fiscal year we are going to give certain amount of guarantees to only particular PSU, that is PSU B, right? So the second that is the concept with respect to the prioritization. The next concept is with respect to applying standard operating process for the guarantee execution and monitoring. There must be a standard operating process with respect to offering or furtherance of guarantee of those particular state governments. Then why? Because what will SOPs do? SOPs will create a kind of process, a kind of mechanism, and randomness will be moved out of the equation. And once the randomness is moved out of the equation, then there is a predictability in economy. And predictability in economy is always good for the business in economy. Next, the third point or recommendation that central government policy came up with is that governments should levy a certain kind of guarantee fee, right? See, PSUs are quasi sovereign bodies, right? You understand the concept of quasi sovereign body. Obviously they are not fully sovereign body, they are quasi sovereign body, and with the giving of title of quasi sovereign bodies, a kind of responsibility is also attached with their functioning. And once a responsibility is attached to their functioning, they must be acting responsibly, right? They cannot be fiscally irresponsible with the money which the people of India have given to them, right? So in that context, what is the suggestion with respect to the central government policy is that we should we should ask for a guarantee fee. In this, by asking for this guarantee fee, they have come up with a number that is 0.25% of overall cost that you are asking, right? Once you ask for a guarantee fee, at least what would happen, they will be sincere towards their effort of not failing that particular PSU further, right? And then creating, the last point is with respect to creating a guarantee redemption fund. Once this kind of fund is created, so what will happen, at least the commitments that come from the state or central government will not be hollow. They can at least, what can they at least do? They can at least, in case of default, they can at least take the money out of that guarantee redemption fund and offer that fund to particular bank on the behalf of the non-performing PSU. Now moving on to the third topic that came with respect to the prelims examination, that is National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited. What is the syllabus mapping with respect to this topic? This comes under the head of GS paper 3, that is General Economy, which means which relates to the topic relates to mobilization of resource mobilization. Why? Because even financial resources are limited and they are to be spent with fiscal prudence. This thing we understood in the previous preceding topic as well, and this is again important with respect to the National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited as well. So we already discussed the key concepts and issues hovering around the working and functioning of National Asset Reconstruction Company. Now let us just look at what are the key advantages of establishment of NARCL, right? So what are the key advantages with respect to this company? Those are clear balance sheet of banks. So what is this essentially? Let me just remind you that this is a kind of a reconstruction company for in the context that the bad loans that are taken by the private sector, right, or the loan defaults, which those will be turned into the those bad loans will be sold by the banks to this reconstruction company, and then reconstruction company will take care of those bad loans, right? So ultimately what will it lead to? It will lead to freedom with respect to repayment or further lending by the banks, right? So what are the key advantages of establishment of NARCL? First one being clear balance sheet of the banks. So in this way banks will be able to maintain their clear balance sheet. Unless what is the current issue right now? Once if asset becomes a non-performing asset after 90 days or so, banks have to show that in their balance sheets, and once they have to show that in their balance sheets, what is the problem further? The problem is that they cannot lend to other needy people, right? So once that bad loan is transferred to National Asset Reconstruction Company, banks will be able to maintain a clear balance sheet, and then consequently they will be able to lend further to other needy organizations or corporates or individuals as well. This will further unlock capital with respect to banks. Then there will be optimal recovery rate with respect to recovery of bad assets, right? Again, this acts as an attractive option for value realization, actual value realization of the asset which is stressed, right? Right now what happens is that once asset has been partially built, and then after the partial building of asset, what happens? This particular project is not being completed, and then they try to create a bubble value with respect to that particular asset. That right now, let us say this project was with respect to 1000 crores, and then it has become a bad asset, and let us say the current value is of that asset is, let us say, incomplete asset obviously is let us say 400 crores, but they will try to inflate this value, that we have already completed the value worth 600 crores, let us say. So why they do it? Because they want to recover as much as possible. So this creation of this particular agency will help to better realize the value of the pending projects. Then faster aggregation of assets, and then speedy process. Right now the process with respect to traditional banks had become too cumbersome. The movement of files and so on and so forth had become so cumbersome that the process had become a nightmare in itself. So this creation of this NARCL makes the process much more speedier. And then The adjoining issue with respect to heavy files and processes is that the entire most of the bank's staff were engaged in non-productive work, that is chasing clients which have not returned their dues, or chasing the advocates, chasing the tribunal, so on and forth, and they were not able to focus their productive time on the for the service of people. So this will just take away all the issues with respect to that, and bank personnel will be able to again service you in a better way. Then it further improves the valuation of bank. Why? Because ultimately, what does bad loan does? What bad loan does is that it will further devalue your bank, and once that bad loan is transferred to NARCL, you can show your books in which you do not own much liability, right? Then enhances the ability of banks to raise market capital, right? So next topic that was taken with respect to your mains examination was with respect to judicial independence. So this topic was again comprehensively covered by Puja ma'am, and then we will just touch upon the need and then the mechanism of judicial independence. So why do we need judicial independence? Right, what, from where does this theory of judicial independence emanate? It emanates from the theory of separation of powers. So there are three organs of a state: executive, judiciary and legislature. All are almost equal, right? So then why do we need a kind of separation between those three? Because in a parliamentary form of government, executive is the primary functioning or executing agency, and then in the course of execution, it might so happen that they may fall prey to errors and so on and forth. So we need an independent judiciary, and that judiciary should be able to take the issues arising out of the functioning of maybe say legislature or laws, or with respect to executive functioning, in a manner that is fair and impartial. So that is why we need a concept of separation of powers. Then again, need of judicial independence is important with respect to establishment of rule of law. You tell me in the comment section, in which article of the constitution do we find the concept related to rule of law that is applicable to Indian constitution, right? Then there should be need of judiciary is significant with respect to separation of powers that we already discussed. Then it is a natural law that power should be checked, because as Lord Acton once said that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So to maintain a kind of check and balance, we must have a independent judiciary. Then only there can be a check on the powers of executive, right? Then again, the important point is that legitimacy of the institutions are derived only when there is a semblance of independence of those institutions, right? Once the institutions are even assumed to be working under the influence of some other institution, the legitimacy of that particular institution is lost. So in order to maintain the legitimacy of judiciary, independence of judiciary is sine qua non. Then fair and impartial implementation of laws, because once first laws are made by legislature, they are being executed by executive. So in those making as well as execution, there might be errors of omission and commission. So those kind of errors must be kept to the minimum, and there must be some redressal mechanism if a person faces any kind of trouble. Wherever there is law, there is remedy. This is one of the judicial doctrines. So in order to fulfill this particular doctrine, we need independent judiciary, and then there must be a trust in the legal system of the country. Why? Because if, let us say, a particular person, or say I am being harmed and I know that my rights are very well protected, and once I go to the judicial institution, my rights will be reinforced and re-established. But what if I live in a country, let us say some sub-Saharan country, let us say, right? So what will happen is that I don't trust my government, and then again, when I am being harmed by the government, my fundamental rights, let us say, are being taken by the government. When I go to the judiciary, they do not have any particular powers with respect to Article 32 or so, right to constitutional remedies. And then what will I do? I'll not find justice. And then, as Raul said, that justice is the first virtue of liberal institutions, just like truth is that of system of thoughts. So justice is the architectonic principle which binds the organization, which binds the institutions and binds the nation together, right? So that is why we need judicial independence, right? Then in our constitutions, let us focus on the concept of judicial independence, how this judicial independence is ensured in very brief. Then what are the key points? The conduct of judges cannot be discussed in parliament. You write down in the comment section the relevant articles with respect to this, because prelims is also approaching, and we need the quick revision with respect to various articles of the constitution. Then the next one is that legislature is not involved in the process of appointment of judges, although this thing was at one point discussed and in the context of NJAC, and then as of now a doctrine of eclipse is being applied on the NJAC, right? Fixed tenure that ensures that they cannot work, they can work fearlessly. Once you are under the impression or under the influence of some any other institution, how can they influence the working of judiciary? That you do not have fixed tenure. So if the executive so deems fit, they'll just fire the judges or so on and forth. So but that does not happen, because judiciary in India, especially higher judiciary, what is the retirement age of judges of high court? That is 62 years, and for the Supreme Court judges, that is 65 years. Okay, then, right? Difficult. Then another issue, another mechanism to establish this judicial independence by the constitution itself is difficult, very difficult impeachment or removal process. Then there is approval of legislature is not required for salaries and allowances of judges, right? Salaries and allowances of judges are charged on the consolidated fund of India. Then again, one of the most important power to establish judicial independence is that power of contempt of court under Article 129. Why? Because as per this power, they can issue contempt notice to any kind of authority or individual who tries to a kind of demean the power or orders of the higher judiciary or so, right? Then the instructions of judiciary are to be followed by the legislature and executive of the country in certain context, right? So these are the mechanisms provided by our own constitution with respect to independent judiciary, and that this is how we can say that the founding fathers of the country wanted a very strong and independent judiciary, right? Then let us discuss in brief what are the issues with respect to judicial appointments which we are facing right now. So the issues are divided under 5 heads. First one being issue of appointment. So earlier there was an issue with respect to appointment, and the government came out with National Judicial Appointment Commission. Then it was again termed as unconstitutional, so termed null and void. Then right now what we face is that there are issues with respect to collegium system. So what is a collegium system? Collegium is a group of senior most judges of the Supreme Court who decide on which judges, which judges are to be elevated from the bar to higher judiciary, and which judges are to be elevated to the rank of Supreme Court judges from various high court judges. So what is the problem with respect to appointment from the judiciary view? That there are allegations that this kind of appointment process is very shady, and it does not enthuse confidence in the eyes of people, that there are accusations of nepotism in the collegium system. However, from the standpoint of government, if we argue that as of now what are the issues that the judiciary is facing is that usually what happens is that government appoints various advocate generals and solicitors generals and so on and forth. So it naturally happens that they have to defend or take the line that is followed officially by the government of the day. Now what happens is that this route, this ASG or state solicitor general route, has become a backdoor towards entering into judiciary. So again, as from the standpoint of judiciary, there are issues that only the advocates who used to be erstwhile mouthpiece, so to say, of the governments are getting appointed as judges, right? Then another issue from the standpoint of judiciary is that judiciary usually says that whatever recommendations we send to the competent authorities are all not taken into consideration. And then only selectively government exercises their power to appoint the judges, and for other competent judges they say that their intelligence bureau reports have not come as per the wishes of the government or so, right? Then this leads us to stalling of appointment. Again, as we discussed just now, that government, there are allegations from there are will not say allegations, these are just apprehensions, skepticism from the standpoint of judiciary, that they say that they usually send various recommendations in the terms of names of judges, right? So what the executive ultimately what they do is that they stall on the appointments. They do not clear the names of various persons who are to be supposed to be recommended and elevated to the High Court or Supreme Court level, and they give the excuse that their IB reports, Intelligence Bureau reports, have not come in correct or right as per the expectations of the government. Then there are conflicts of interest and issues with respect to the retirement age. As we already discussed, what is the retirement age of a Supreme Court judge? That is 65 years. Now what is the retirement age of a judge of High Court? That is 62 years. There is a gap of 3 years. Now what will happen, that a judge, let us say, he is about to retire at the age of 62. Now what does he want? He wants further extension of tenure. So at the fag end of his career, in 61 years or so, 61 and a half, or up to 62 years, just before he is about to retire, he'll give judgments in the favor of government, so that government, let us say, recommends his elevation, right, to the collegium system, that yes, we are okay with him being elevated in the collegium, right? So that is, this 3 years gap creates a kind of wide gap when it comes to retirement age. So one of the recommendation is that it should be uniform retirement age for the Supreme Court and High Court judges, right? Then there are issues with respect to post retirement appointments in the terms of NHRC chairmen, right, tribunals in the form of CAT, NGT, so on and forth. Then even there is a recent trend with respect to appointment of various Supreme Court judges to not CJIs, but to VCs of universities, right? Then governors of states, so on and forth. So there should be a cooling off period between the retirement and reappointment to some other constitutional body. And then there are issues with respect to CJI as master of roster. What are the issues? There are issues with respect to conflict of interest, because as we know that CJI, generally it so happens that every even judges have certain kind of ideological leanings, so to say. So the way I constitute a bench will largely determine what kind of judgment will come. That part you should agree to, right? So if, let us say, a particular case comes to my attention, and I constitute a particular bench which I know will lean towards which side, right? So as a master of roster, what can a CGI do? The CGI will constitute certain kind of bench which will give adversarial or preferable judgment. So this is again a issue of conflict of interest when it comes to appointment and issues arising out of judicial independence. Then moving on to the next day, that was Tuesday. The session was taken by Shashank Sir. From the preliminary standpoint, we took again an interesting issue of writ jurisdiction, which is important with respect to your prelims examination. Then there was an issue with respect to United Nations RWA, that is Rehabilitation Agency, with respect to Palestinian areas, right? Then there was a very interesting and very engaging article with respect to Humboldt Enigma. You must be knowing about Humboldt. I think he was a German scientist who researched in South America, right? And on the southern America, on the Chilean and Peruvian coast, there is a counterclockwise current by the name of Humboldt current. You must be knowing about it. So again, a very interesting article was there in the context of Humboldt Enigma. What do you understand by the term enigma? Enigma is a concept that is very peculiar and a very difficult thing to believe, right? Something that is unbelievable kind of thing, right? So right, then from the standpoint of means, there were two issues, that was first with respect to public healthcare and second with respect to the Indo-Bhutanese relationship. So we'll not go into detail, we'll just revise what are the various writs. The concept of writ comes from the British tradition, in which king was given certain powers, right? Why was king given certain powers? Because powers are essential to the working of crown. So for example, let us say a person used to, let us say, visit the king, and he says that for the past couple of days my father is missing, or for the past couple of days my son is missing. What king used to do? King used to say yes, habeas. He used to offer a writ, right? So writ of habeas corpus, which literally means bring in the present or present the body. So the court or the let us say police or the king's servant back then, they were obliged to perform that particular duty, and then they were obliged to present that particular person's body in front of the king. So that is how the concept of writs emerged in the British constitutional history, and then this was taken up. But however, in Indian context, the uniqueness is that these writs are not available to any kind of executive, right, or legislature. These writs are available to the judiciary, right? So the first writ is the writ of habeas corpus, which means what are the implications of this writ? It ensures that no unlawful imprisonment is taken up by the executive. And then from this writ emerges an important right, that every individual must be processed within a stipulated amount of time from the arrest to the presentation before the judicial magistrate, right? Then it allows release through the writ, right? Once a writ has been filed, that writ of habeas corpus has been filed, if the court is satisfied that this detention was unlawful, the court will grant the release. Then there is mandamus. Mandamus literally means command, and this command is issued by the executive for the execution of local duties. Then certiorari writ means to be certified. This certifies legal authority of the judicial review, and then it is essential for legal problems and authority issues. Basically, this writ is used for the certification by the legal authorities that yes, this thing is valid as per the judicial interpretation or not. Then there is a writ of prohibition, right? Prohibition is used for stopping the transgressions by the lower courts, because only a competent authority can pass the orders. If a lower court offers a kind of or delivers a kind of order for which it was not competent, then the higher judiciary will definitely intervene, and in this case they will prohibit their transgression by the lower courts. And then the last one is quo warranto, or under the under what warrant. They're just asking that what is the warrant, what is the authority. So this means to check the legality of the claim to the public office, that if a person claims a claim, makes a claim to the public office, they'll ask about the warrant. What is your warrant on the basis of which you are making a claim on to the public office? So the objectives of the writs are, first being, these are liberation focused. That means they are focused on the implementation of basic fundamental rights of the individuals, and these are not punitive in nature. So article, from where does we derive our writ jurisdiction? As per Article 32 of the Constitution of India, Supreme Court derives, and 226, as per Article 226, high courts of the states derive their writ jurisdiction. So it is very natural to assume for us that because Supreme Court is a hierarchy by senior court to the high courts, so the writ jurisdiction of Supreme Court would be wider and broader. But this is not the case. The power of Supreme Court with respect to issuance of writs is limited in the context of only fundamental rights. However, in the case of these high courts, this power of writ is extended to the notion of even ordinary laws as well. So why this power is given? Because at the central stage there is very less transgression of the laws, but usually because law and order is what? A state subject. So in the performance of duties by the executive, there is a lot of transgression with respect to ordinary laws. So that is why not only in the case of transgression of fundamental rights, the writs offered to the high courts are valid in case of transgression towards ordinary laws as well. And then the another objective is that they are aimed at ensuring justice and legal adherence. And lastly, they provide a kind of quick review mechanism or quick relief mechanism with respect to the problems that might be faced by the individual. Then we'll discuss very quickly and briefly about what is UN Relief and Work Agency. This is a particular agency that is focused on 5 areas. Why was this in news? This particular news agency was in news in the context of Israel Gaza war. So what are the key takeaway points? The first one being, it was established in 1949. Where are the headquarters of UN Relief and Work Agency? They are located in Amman and Gaza. What are the objectives? The objective is to provide direct relief to the work and programs of Palestinian refugees. Right. Then what are the kinds of services it provides? It provides the services of education, healthcare, relief, social services, infrastructure, camp improvement, microfinancial assistance, and emergency response with respect to the Palestinian refugees which are living in Jordan or West Bank, right? So now we come to an very engaging concept of Humboldt Enigma, right? So let us say this is the world map, and then this is the equator. So traditionally it was understood that this is North America, this is South America, this is Europe, Asia, right? This is Africa. It was understood that most of the biodiversity lies in the equatorial region, right? But however, what Humboldt proposed in one of its works is that there is a definite correlation between biodiversity and the separation or the distance from the equator. But however, there is a strong correlation of biodiversity with altitude as well. So this Humboldt Enigma is a concept which is relevant with respect to what? The relationship between biodiversity and altitude, right? So as per Humboldt, he suggested that orogeny is what is orogeny? Orogeny is a the process of making of mountains. The orogeny is also responsible for the biodiversity in India or in the world. So we can easily understand this concept. So let us assume that from where do you find, if I just ask you, where will you find the most biodiverse places in India? So your natural response will be, let us say, two. First, one being Western Ghats and the contiguous region of Kerala and Tamil Nadu, right? And the second would be obviously Northeast region. So it is obvious that the first instance that biodiversity is found, huge biodiversity is found close to equator, gets validated. Why? Because Kerala is very near to equator, right? Nearer to it, equator. Western Ghats are nearer to equator, so to say, at least. But the second hypothesis gets validated. Why is there a huge amount of biodiversity in the Northeast? It gets validated by the second, this particular enigma of Humboldt, that there is a close relationship between altitude and then altitude and biodiversity. What are the key takeaway points? The key takeaway points are that mountains are the hotspot regions of the world, and 87% of amphibian birds and mammals are even found in the mountainous regions, right? Then high altitude areas project richness in the biodiversity. Then there is a point with respect to endemism. Endemism means that particular species residing in particular area. So many species in the mountains are endemic and found, which are not found in anywhere other than the particular mountainous regions, right? For example, flying squirrel is found in particular area of India, that is Namdapha National Reserve, Namdapha Reserve, right? Right. And then what is another key takeaway is that mountain biodiversity often surpasses the lowland tropical forest. It usually so happens that an individual will assume that more biodiversity will be found in the tropical regions. However, it is not always correct. Many a times more biodiversity is found in the altitudinal reaches. Why is it so? A point of inquiry must emerge, that why is it so? What is there in the mountains that offers this kind of biodiversity? So first one being, they are there is a variety of soil, then moisture, right, and diversity of plants. So these functions make mountains a habitat of rich biodiversity. There is a richness in the peaks of mountain slopes, because over the period various kind of detritus materials are found, and then they provide good breeding ground for the flora and fauna to grow, right? Moving on to the main topic, the topic was centered around the issue of populism, which is plaguing the public health in India. So the what is the syllabus mapping for this particular issue? The syllabus mapping is with respect to our GS paper 3, and then again GS paper 2 also covers portions of healthcare issue with respect to functioning of government schemes, right, so on and forth. So this topic or question from this topic can emerge in your GS paper 2 also, in the context of governance issues related to governance and functioning of schemes, and then it can emerge in with respect to your GS paper 3 as well, in the context of public health care and issues arising out of the demography, right? So there have been various questions in the past. So for example, we dealt with a question in the past, PYQ of 2020, in the parent video. Then there was a again into it 2018 and 16 also, there were particular questions with respect to the issues arising out of healthcare. And then we discussed in the parent video the issues around the healthcare, which are with respect to its funding, regional disparity, accessibility, issues of negligence in the context of preventive care, policy making or policy, a kind of lack of policy making we can say, or policy blindness we can say, with respect to the healthcare sector in India. And then the issue of pharmaceutical regulatory authority nexus also we discussed in the parent video. And then we concluded the topic with respect to various recommendations which are provided to you in the form of PDF as well. Let us try to add some value to the existing conversation by providing suggestions and way forward. The first one being that budget increase should be there. There should be an adequate increase of budget. The current spending is only nearly 1.1% of GDP. In the context of, let us say, developed countries, we can say they are spending close to 10% of their GDP on the healthcare sector, right? And then the national health policy has recommended a outlay of 2.5%. At least we should try to meet the targets of our own policies. Then there is an issue with respect to lack of trust in the healthcare. People do not trust the healthcare system in India, especially in the context of issues arising in the functioning of government hospitals and so on. So there is a lack of mistrust between between the doctors and the patients, right? So this issue needs to be readdressed. Again, the emerging issues which are coming are with respect to the tertiary sector diseases in the form of mental health, in the form of high blood pressure, sugar, so on and forth. So these kind of issues, hypertension, right, stress, work related stress, so on and forth. So what we can do is that first one, we can integrate the traditional as well as modern medicine for the improvement in this context. And also we should, or the state should, avoid prolonged conflicts and peace. They should the state should promote peace and stability, so that more and the issues with respect to these tertiary healthcare problems in the context of, let us say, high blood pressure, sugar, so on and forth, do not occur. Then there simple preventive steps, for example, let us say issues with respect to anemia or lack of protein deficiency. We already discussed in one of the videos that we covered in the context of millets. One of the issues or points was that in India the diet is very rich in carbs, because in northern India especially, the diet constitutes uh, wheat and rice. But the consequent problem is that we do not focus much on protein. So this leads to various problems. One of the problem that we discussed over there is with respect to anemia, right, or overall gut health, because these kind of carbohydrates contain gluten, right? So introducing eggs in nutrition has become a political issue, right? So what we can do is that we can depoliticize these kind of things, because egg is one of the easiest, cheapest and best source of protein, which should be incorporated in the diets of children in the midday meals, right? Then there are recommendations with respect to safe working environment, working hours, so on and forth. Then why do we discuss about tuberculosis control? Is that because tuberculosis has a very high disease burden when it comes to India. So once we take care of the disease burden of tuberculosis, we will be able to focus on other parts or other issues with respect to various diseases as well, right? So it is essential for us to strengthen the tuberculosis TB control. Then the mother of all recommendations is that you improve the primary healthcare sector. See, primary healthcare sector is again marred with a lot of corruption and so on and forth. In today's news itself, there was a news on the third page of the Hindu that CBI is again probing fake registrations in the mohalla clinics of currently Delhi government. So these kind of issues continue to happen with respect to the primary healthcare, because we take our jobs very lightly the agencies take their jobs very lightly, and they become breeding ground of for the corruption. So primary healthcare needs to be strengthened, and those kind of models need to be brought in, which are not a kind of band-aid in their approach, but they provide enduring and long lasting, not just physical or infrastructural assets, as well as human resource development with respect to taking care of healthcare of the country. And then gender equality in the healthcare access. There is a disparity with respect to allocation of resources and priorities when it comes to gender uh, gender differences, and we should also have a gendered way of looking at various kind of diseases and provide adequate safety for the female gender as well. Then we came to discuss various issues on recommendations when it comes to India Bhutan relationship. Which are the what are the Let us quickly read what are the key areas of cooperation. So key areas of cooperation are trade and economic ties with respect to Bhutan. So India is one of the countries with which Bhutan, since being a landlocked country, has a lot of trade with. Then there is a very strong development partnership, hydropower cooperation, then cultural ties, defense cooperation, and space cooperation. What are the challenges? The challenges that we discussed were with respect to changing nature of aids. Why? Because traditionally, earlier we were giving to Bhutan various aid in the from the standpoint of uh, aid right now, but we have reclassified our aid, and we are aid constitutes more of grants rather than aids as such. So uh, one of the issues with respect to grant is that grants don't have to be paid back, but once you offer certain loans have to be paid back. So earlier what we used to do, we used to provide grants. Now the aid has changed, we are again providing aid, but in the form of soft loans, right? So obviously the other country will look for options, because ultimately it is a landlocked country, and because of its commitment to the environment, they do not promote heavy industries or huge industries over there in Bhutan. And then there are challenges with respect to BBIN project. This was a interconnectivity project that was supposed to link the northeast of India with two prominent countries, that is Bhutan, Nepal, and Bangladesh. So this project was, again, because of its ecological concerns and the huge inflow of tourists and vehicles, was again sent to the cold bag by the Bhutanese government, and these are the pending issues with respect to India Bhutan relationship. Now moving forward, what are the suggestions? First one being space cooperation. Recently there was a news that ISRO has planned to set up one of its space stations in Bhutan. So this is a welcome step. It will further deepen the spirit of science, and then cooperation based on scientific inquiry between the two adjoining nations. Then another way forward is with respect to, we should prioritize the relationship between various infrastructural projects, connectivities such as rail link, trade and facilitation agreements. Then again, another aspect of relationship is that currently the relationship is lopsided. Why? Because it is focused a lot on the transaction with respect to hydropower in uh, between India and Bhutan. But what needs to be done? What needs to be done is that we need to diversify we need to diversify our basket. Then there is an issue with respect to efficient execution of crucial projects. So speedy execution of crucial projects is very essential for the relationship to mature and endure. Then there is what are the other way forwards? Regional cooperation to counter geopolitical concerns. We can obviously come close to counter various challenges. That is, for instance, China is again eyeing for disputed land from Bhutan that can be tackled, right? So let us move on to Wednesday. The session was taken by Ankit sir. From the preliminary standpoint, we took three issues. First one being Transparency International, the second one being Western disturbances, and the third one being black hole and neutron stars. We solved some fantastic questions over there in that session. From the mains point of view, we took two issues. First one being fertilizer subsidy. Again, this fertilizer subsidy has been covered in detail in the past as well. This issue was again dealt with meticulous details in that particular session. And then there is, because there was a news of increase in the direct tax collection of the country, the news was inspired by recent budgets, right? So we took the topic of issue of direct tax collection. Then let us discuss the organization. What are the key observations that it made in the context of India, and what are the way forward when it comes to curbing the corruption in India, right? What is corruption? The most broadest and widest definition that is given with respect to corruption is given by the World Bank, and it simply puts that corruption is misuse of public office for private gains. This is this simple definition, but it is a very large and encompassing definition that is being given by the World Bank. So key takeaway points with respect to this corruption perception index in the context of your pre-examination were that this corruption perception index is released by Transparency International, and then India's ranking has declined in the past few years. You please write down in the comment section if you are able to recall and remember what is the current ranking in this recently released report. So what are the key observations that this particular report made in the context of India was that India's corruption perception scores remain stagnant. Why? See, recently the scores have become or resultantly our ranks as well have become stagnant. Stagnation means, let us say in preceding year it was 88, 89. Now it has become 90, 91. In the next year or so it will become 92, 93, or again remain at 91. So why are we not able to achieve something considerable so that our ranks improve substantially, right? So one of the primary reasons that was cited in the report only was that because of unfulfilled anti-corruption commitments, governments have year on year made various commitments with respect to curbing or ending the corruption, but this again has become a very huge electoral plank, but things have not changed on the ground. So this thing was observed by the Transparency International, and then it remarked that unfulfilled anti-corruption commitments are one of the primary reasons for the stagnated ranking of India, right? Then again, with respect to this, in the preceding video, once we talked about the concept of civil society and what it has to offer to the country. So one of the prominent things that civil society offers to the country is that it affords a kind of accountability. It offers a kind of accountability and maintains transparency in the functioning of public authorities, right? So because of the space of civil society is shrinking in the context of India, we can cite instances of action that is taken with respect to various civil society organizations, various public spirited individuals, so on and forth. Recently, FCRA licensing has become a weapon in the hands of let us say various governments for curbing the civil society organizations. There was a recent news that even the NGOs of Harsh Mandar, he is a very well-renowned public intellectual and an ex-IAS officer. So his NGO was also raided and denied the FCRA license. So the civic space in India is narrowing, and then this has resultantly led to shady transactions, lack of accountability and transparency in the in the context of civil societies. So that is one of the reasons that was cited by the Transparency International report. Then there is an attack on press freedom, which is contributing to decreased oversight and increased corruption, as this is again being cited by the Transparency International report. Now we come to key recommendations. This a kind reminder that these recommendations are the ones which are directly drawn from the report itself. And additionally, we'll see further what other recommendations can be given with respect to improving transparency and curbing corruption in the context of Indian public administration. Right. So first recommendation is strengthening judicial independence through merit-based appointments. One of the issues that was cited by the report was that there are issues with respect to judicial appointments as well, not just in India. They cited the example of almost all the East and Southeast Asian countries, right? They treat India as well as in the South Asia and Asia Pacific region. So they provide a kind of unified reporting with respect to this particular region. So they also found this kind of issues of judicial independence in the context of Indonesia and Malaysia as well, right? So strengthening judicial independence. Just now we read about issues arising out of judicial independence in the preceding slides, and then again the subsequent evidence is right in front of you, because the slide in the judicial independence that we are taking is directly responsible for the stagnation of ranking in the context of Transparency International, right, or Corruption Perception Index. Then there is a need to increase transparency, not just in the comprehensively in the context of judicial system, and if we subdivide with respect to, most importantly, the prosecuting agencies, there is a lack of transparency when it comes to the prosecuting officers of the state or the public prosecutors, and a huge scope of corruption lies in the prosecution sector, right? Then the third one was with respect to establishing a dedicated reporting mechanism to prevent abuse of power and by the administrators and prosecutors. They have specifically cited two group of officials, first one being civil servants as administrators, and then second one being public prosecutors, which are primarily responsible. See, prosecutors also involved state prosecutors, that means they also involve police and government advocates. So civil servants, police and prosecutors are particularly highlighted by the committee, by the agency in the context of corruption in India, and we have any kind of a step that has to be taken in the context of curbing the corruption. These three agencies or institutions have to be have to improve their functioning, right? Additional measures that can be suggested with respect to curbing corruption in India is that we need to strengthen the anti-corruption laws, not just strengthening the laws on the paper but also their ground implementation. There should be no weaponization of agencies for political gains, but genuinely there should be a spirit of curbing corruption and punishing the corrupt, right? Then there is a need to enhance the government transparency by the involvement of various NGOs and civil society organizations. Since that is not happening, further opacity in the government is rising, and which is leading to various issues of governance deficit which need to be catered, right? Then promoting accountability, encouraging citizen participation, promoting whistleblower protection. Now what is the problem with respect to whistleblower protection? We made a law but the law was not being implemented, right? And then we have made a very weak law. That is the problem with respect to law forming in India. And then lastly, it recommended that there should be a culture of integrity that should be inculcated in the civil society and society as a whole, so that we do not take the issues of corruption very lightly and with a chalta hai attitude. We need to take corruption with a very stringent look. Next, moving on to the concept of Western disturbances that was taken up that day in the context of preliminary examination. What are Western disturbances? As you can see, it is a wind pattern that originates from Mediterranean, draws its water from Caspian Sea, and in the months of January and February it reaches India, especially the northwestern part of India, prominently the states of J&K, Punjab, Haryana, Himachal, and Uttarakhand. These are the northern states of India, right? So it reaches the northwestern part of India, and in a spurt of 2-3 days, it is responsible for rainfall, right? So it is responsible for the rainfall, and this phenomena occurs almost 4 to 5 times in a year. What are the key merits and advantages of this western disturbance? The first and the most important is that it keeps the February very cool, right? And it is responsible for low temperatures in February. Otherwise, if western disturbances would not be present, the summers would arrive pretty early, and consequently it is western disturbances are prominently important for the with the respect of moisture retention in soil. And prominently, you must have heard about the news recently that peaks in Jammu and Kashmir were facing deficit of snow this year. One of the reasons behind this is that there is a lack of regularity and erraticism when it comes to the western disturbances, and since western disturbances could not occur, subsequently rainfall and snowfall could not happen at the higher reaches, and there was a lack of snow, right? Then subsequently it is responsible for better yield of wheat, right? And overall, ultimately it is responsible for the not happening of droughts in our country. So all in all, western disturbances are very important for our country because they are one of the uh, guarantees of extra monsoonal rains in the northwestern parts of India, right? So what are the key issues with respect to western disturbances that we are facing? There are an issues with respect to erraticism in the functioning of or the formation of western disturbances, and the primary reasons that are being cited and are in front of your screen in the form of infographic are: Arctic warming is responsible for lack of regularity in the formation and distribution of western disturbances. Then the another issue is with respect to North Atlantic oscillations, right? And then third one being formation of La Nina phenomena, and lastly overall climate change. These four factors have contributed to the issues of erratic and non-timely western disturbances uh, occurring in the northwestern part of India. So these issues need to be seen in the context of overall climate change that is happening and is being responsible for the change of seasons and erraticism of seasons. Then there was a topic with respect to direct tax collection. What is the context? That net direct tax collection has increased by 160%. That is a phenomenal number, from 6,38,596 crores in 2013-14. That is the base year that is taken over here, to 16,63,686 crores in 2022 and 23. Then we discussed about reasons for low tax collection in India. The reasons were informal economy. Large part of India's economy is not formal in nature, and this informalism leads to no registration with respect to formal tax structures, and then subsequently there is lack of direct tax collection. Then there is tax exemption to agricultural sector. Then there is issue with respect to tax legislation, which is the primary reason for which is with respect to the policies and a long term vision with respect to tax planning in India by the government. Then there is an issue with respect to low tax base, high tax rates, and inefficiency in tax administration. So in the previous DNS, we already discussed that one of the in the context of indirect taxes, tax to in the reading of tax to GDP ratio, we also understood that tax collection exercise in the context of indirect taxes has increased. Why? Because of digitization pushed by the government and GST reforms. but similar exercise has not been catered in the context of direct taxes. So still there is a issue with respect to inefficiency in the tax collection mechanism when it comes to certain direct taxes, right? Then what will add value to our understanding by understanding what are the key advantages with respect to increased direct taxes, and then we'll see suggestions which should be there with respect to how to strengthen the direct tax collection. First one being it gives revenue boost. Obviously direct implication of higher tax collection is getting a revenue boost, and then subsequent boost will lead to further government spending on the welfare measures. Then progressive, it is a direct sign of progressive taxation, because indirect taxes, what they do is that they affect the pauper as well as prince in the same way, but which is unfortunate, which might be good for the well off, but it pinches more to the poor people, right? Then there is an issue with respect to fiscal stability. They provide enough fiscal stability and confidence to the government for management of their expenditures. Then it can encourages saving and investment funds. And subsequently, the another linked part is that they are direct tax collections fund social welfare programs. It is through these taxes that the government is able to fund the social welfare and developmental programs. The more the direct tax collection, or more the tax collection in general, the better government will be able to say improve the basic issues. One of the issues that we discussed in the preceding section was with respect to, let us say, healthcare, on which only a paltry sum of 1.25% of GDP is being spent. The more taxes the government collects, the more it will have in its hands to spend on the much needed sectors such as healthcare to spend, right? And then ultimately it will promote social equity, which is one of the long term goal of Constitution of India, right? What are the suggestions in the context of improving the direct tax collection? Strengthen tax administration, because as we saw that there is inefficiency in the taxation on or collection mechanism of direct taxes. Once we strengthen the tax administration, one of the steps that was taken in the context of this strengthening of tax administration was PAN Aadhaar linkage. Further such steps are needed in this context to further strengthen the tax collection. Then there is a need to expand the tax base. However, overall we have seen that there is a 43% increase in the recent times in the tax base of the country, but still it is far lower than the developed countries or other emerging economies. So we need to further strengthen and expand the tax base, bring more and more people in the slab or criteria towards which they can be taxed. Then we need to simplify tax laws and procedures, encourage voluntary compliance, enhance enforcement actions. Then there is a need to foster international cooperation with respect to tax compliance and direct tax compliance in the context of India. Then there is a need to promote digital payments. There is a need to provide anti-avoidance measures, and then invest taxpayers' education, and we need to invest in taxpayer education and capacity building of the organizations which are directly responsible for the collection and collection of taxes, right? Then on 1st of February, the session was taken by Vaibhav Sir. From the preliminary standpoint, we took 3 issues. The first one being the core sector. What is the core sector? We'll soon understand with respect to Indian economy. Then there was another issue with respect to the payment banks that we took, because in the recent context there was a news that the license of Paytm payment bank was in question. And then in the third news, there was a new in the preliminary section, the news was with respect to compressed biogas. From the mains standpoint, there was a news article on micro, small and medium enterprises. We comprehensively covered the issues revolving around it, and not just these issues. Why do we always suggest the students to watch the Daily News Simplified? Is that not just the preliminary and mains issues, we are also simplifying, we are continuously working to simplify the UPSC preparation. And in this context, our endeavor is to further simplify the daily editorials, the prominent daily editorials which are appearing in the three prominent newspapers of the country, that is Indian Express, the Hindu, Indian Express, and the Business Line. So we are also covering various news editorials as well in the parent DNS videos. So please kindly watch them, subscribe to them, and then again suggest your friends who have just started preparation that this kind of content is available for them to watch for free of cost. Right. Moving on to core industries, the first sector, first topic that was taken that day. What are the key points of remember? What are the 8 core industries? Let me just write it down. Coal, crude, natural gas, petroleum, refinery, product, fertilizers, steel, cement, and electricity. Why are these products or sectors called as core sectors? Because they are the prominent indicators of economic growth and progress. See, how do we see or reflect upon how our economy is functioning and growing and being very strong? Because usage of energy and development of infrastructure are the direct indicators of a well functioning and growing economy. So these are the products. See, coal, crude, natural gas, and petroleum, these are directly related to our energy consumptions and demands. It can be in the form of household energy or mobility, right? Petroleum is important for mobility. So these first four are indicators of the economic growth in terms of usage of energy. Fifth is important because our country is largely agrarian based country, and then usage of or uptake of fertilizer is a strong indicator of growth in that particular sector. And then the third one, last three are significant with respect to infrastructural growth and progress, because any kind of infrastructure requires steel as well as cement to grow. So these are the core industries. In the past, there have been questions with respect to the index of 8 core industries. We also made a very good practice question for you to solve. And then moving on, we'll see certain recommendations or what are the recent steps which are taken by the government in the context of improving the core sector in India, right? So what are the recent steps? The first one being, see, all in all these steps which are going to see on the next slide is in one way or the other will be impacting the usage of these 8 core sectors. So all these will be targeted towards enhancing the usage of these 8 core sectors. For instance, National Infrastructure Pipeline, which is a mega project of the government of India, which is expected to boost infrastructure and spur growth. What will it need? It will need cement, it will need steel, it will need electricity, and because infrastructural projects will also require transportation of heavy materials and so on and forth, it will have direct implication on petroleum or oil, right? Then make a scheme such as Make in India, Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana, Swachh Bharat Mission, all these schemes are stimulator schemes. Stimulator schemes means these schemes stimulate the local economy in such a way that demand arises, right? So as soon as demand for these products arises, for example, a road is being built in your village, what will it need? It will need tar. If it is a cement road, it will need cement, steel, so on and forth. If it is a bitumen road, it will need bitumen. Again, construction materials would be needed to lay down the road, right? So all in all, at least one of these eight products would be required in heavy amount, right? Then productivity linked incentive scheme for specialty steel has been promoted by the government of India, right? Then in the recent time there have been amendments or changes made in the coal sector laws so that successful coal auctions can be undertaken, and subsequently coal auction becomes transparent and more efficient, and less deadlock are seen with respect to disputes and all, and then subsequently the extraction of coal becomes easier. Then the fifth one being reform in exploration. HELP and NELP were two schemes, if you must be remembering them. Higher exploration and licensing policy and new exploration and licensing policies. All these two policies were with respect to exploration of petroleum and associated products in the near vicinity of India. Then there is an integrated power development scheme for reliable urban power supply. I hope you guys are taking certain notes or at least taking screenshots, because a lot of effort goes on to prepare these slides. We have to prepare these key points one by one, right? By going to various websites, government sources, so on and forth. And then only we are able to collect this material for you to memorize, right? The seventh step that is taken by the government is that rural electrification has been given a push. Not just rural electrification, all the government schemes can be in one way or the other said to have boosted the eight core sectors. In the last session, we also discussed about Jal Jeevan Mission. In this particular mission also, what will be needed is that assets will be created, tangible permanent assets will be created with respect to rural population, and for the creation of those particular states, maybe pipelines would be used, for example cement would be used for making the pump houses, so on and forth. So that will, what will it lead to? It will ultimately lead to performance or expansion in the productivity of eight core sectors, right? Major initiative announced to boost the mining sector, right? And then productivity linked scheme for 13 key sectors for manufacturing and export has also been announced. Moving on, there is a stimulus with respect to startup ecosystem, international trade, and support innovation and industrialization in various regions. So all these steps towards industrialization lead to what? The core, the boost or fillip in the demand of these eight core sector industries, such as, let us say, cement, it could be fertilizer, it could be coal, it could be energy, electricity, so on and forth, right? Next topic was with respect to compressed biogas. What were the key takeaway points? Compressed biogas along with other energy, renewable energy, clean energy sources. Again, in just couple of slides back, we read about acid rain. What was responsible for acid rain? Sulfur, right? So sulfur is to be weeded out from the diesel, from the coal, everything. So one of the options that emerges is with respect to that is compressed biogas. What is the difference between biogas and compressed biogas? The exact differentiation is that the traditional biogas also contains sulfur also, carbon monoxide also, hydrogen also, and then methane also. That is the primary combustible component. However, in compressed biogas, all these components are removed and only one component is kept, that is core component, which is methane. Why is it important? It is important for meeting energy demands, and we have committed to ourselves that we'll shift towards cleaner fuel and a cleaner energy basket for our country, and towards that compressed biogas is important. Then we came up and discussed an important issue with respect to micro, small, and medium enterprises. Already Webber sir covered this particular issue in so much detail that it is very less to add right now for us. So what was the syllabus mapping? Syllabus mapping for this is that in General Studies paper 3, issues related to planning and mobilization of resources and inclusive growth is directly mentioned. So it is also one of the sustainable development goals as well. how do we make growth more inclusive? That is the question. So how do we make the growth more inclusive? It is through when we involve more and more participants in our growth story. And then how can we involve more and more participants in the growth story? By involving micro, small and medium enterprises along with the obviously existing traditional old companies. Then there was a question in the recently concluded mains examination that faster economic growth requires increased share of manufacturing sector in GDP, right? Okay. Particularly of MSMEs. Again, MSMEs have been a subject of inquiry for the civil services examination. It is one of the favorite topics of UPSC when it comes to your GS paper 3. So comment on the present policies of the government in this regard. This was a direct question that was asked, direct question in the your GS paper 3. So while reading, while preparing for yourself, you need to focus on the issues arising out of functioning and then what the government is doing in that particular regard. So without further delay, let us discuss directly address this question: what are the present policies and measures taken by the government in the context of making MSMEs sustainable? So for the first step is that the government of India has established export facilitation counters and entrepreneurship development cells for the support of MSMEs. Then there is an international cooperation scheme for marketability. Now you will understand the issue around marketability when you go and watch the parent video, because issue of marketability was discussed in the parent video. What is the issue with respect to marketability? That they make good products, but because there is a lack of brand value or brand awareness with respect to the products made by MSME, they fail to compete with the quality, branding and well received products, right? So for that, to address that, government has introduced international cooperation scheme on marketability. Then there is an introduction of MSME Mart for digital solution. MSME Mart would be a kind of mart or digital mart in which products made by MSME would be sold, right? Then there is cluster development program for competitiveness. Government what they have suggested is that you go and build particular products in particular clusters. For example, UP had recently come up with one district one product scheme, in which one particular product which is famous in the context of particular district would be, obviously it would be for micro, small and medium enterprises, and these products would be made much more competitive and would be sold across nation as well as international level. There is a provision or recommendation or initiative with respect to MSME technology centers for technical support, right? Financial aid is being given for the technology and exports, and extension of foreign trade policy in the context of COVID-19, because particular suffering was observed by the MSME sector because of the migration of the various labor and so on and forth. So the particular relief policies which were taken up at the time of COVID-19, the government has extended those policies for a couple of more years. Then we also discussed with respect to MSMEs launch of RoadTep and ROSCTL scheme. RoadTep scheme was again covered by me only in the previous DNS recap. What is the scheme? You tell me in the comment section. If you have watched the video, you must be able to remember that back in the previous week or so, there was a visit of WTO officials and there were negotiations with respect to RoadTep scheme, right? So everything is, so this is how we interlink everything, right? Common digital platform for certification of origin. So what will this particular platform do? It will provide a kind of digital platform for the point of certificate of origin. This will lead to various other incentives with respect to uptake of this product in the let us say take in the context of gem portal of Government of India, because Government of India has also mandated that certain proportion of the government procurements has to be made from the not just make in India products but also micro, small and medium enterprises. Then enhancement of India's missions abroad, are even our missions are taking up MSME products and taking those products to the international stage. On Friday, a very engaging and beautiful session on the budget, right? Just before a day, budget was presented, and on Friday, that is 2nd of February, the session on the budget was taken by Baswa sir. We are enthralled to tell you that that video was very much liked by our students and the student community writ large, and there is no need to again go into the details because that particular video has already been appreciated by students so much, right? So you just, those of you who have missed that video, just please go and watch that video for a better and comprehensive understanding of the interim budget that was presented a couple of days back. Moving on to the last day, the topic was taken, the session was taken by Vidushi ma'am. From the preliminary standpoint, we dealt with the issues of e-NAM, that is e-National Agricultural Market. Then we took the issue with respect to cocoa production, then National Legal Aid Services Authority NALSA, and then National Coal Index were discussed with respect to your preliminary examination. From the mains standpoint, we took issue of energy security, its prospects and challenges associated with it, and along with it, that is why I keep suggesting that you should never miss the daily DNS, because in recap there is a limitation of time as well as everything, that we cannot make this video for a very long time, and so I feel bad about missing these topics of editorial which are very interesting and engaging to again deliver to my students. But what I suggest, a way out, is that you should not miss the regular daily DNS program, right? So moving on, what are the key takeaway points from e-NAM project? You must be aware about the concept and issue. What is e-NAM? That is National Agricultural Market. For example, after the commencement of digital age, everything started to be sold online, and then the government thought that why can't we sell agricultural products online, right? So the government came up with the idea of instituting a e-NAM portal, and then now this portal has various key advantages for the farmer, for the consumer, for the businessman, and everyone involved in the chain. And then we'll discuss the key advantages with associated with respect to e-NAM. What are the key takeaways? e-NAM facilitates pan-India trade. Earlier the trade was localized, say maybe mandi to mandi trade used to happen very rarely, and then in intra-mandi trade, right, was the main plank of trade. Then it leads to better price discovery. Maybe let us say onions are sold at 10 rupees per kg in mandi in Maharashtra, and then there is a demand of onions in Delhi, and it could be sold for, let us say, for example, 17 rupees in Delhi. What will the farmer do? He'll not sell the onions in the Maharashtra mandi. Obviously he'll hire a transport mechanism and sell it to the Delhi mandi. So the farmer will be able to discover the price of his product in a better way. Then there is an advantage of timely payment. Earlier the issue with respect to agriculture sector is that, again, agriculture issue works on the basis of borrowings. You borrow, you sow, then you reap, and once you sell it, then again you wait for the payments, and then you go towards the middlemen for asking for money, so on and forth. So these are the problems. In the context of NAM, there is a provision for instant payment. Obviously, if he's, let's say, the same farmer is going to sell the product to a person in Delhi, obviously as soon as the consignment reaches Delhi, after the quality checks, he's going to send that particular money through online payments to his place at Maharashtra. So at least it is better than delayed payments that the traditional mandi architecture used to face, right? Transparent online ordering, again, these are all the advantages that are associated with online trading, are the advantages that are associated with enam. Better price realization for producers. Obviously, you just saw the instance in which a farmer was able to realize the better value for his product in a place that is located 3000 kilometers away, obviously, right? Reduce transaction cost for buyers. Okay, then moving stable prices and availability of consumer. Again, one of the advantages of enam is that it leads to better price stabilization, and it avoids price instability or distortions by the local arhatiyas. Because in the traditional mandis, the mandis are again dominated by the arhatiyas. So what it leads to price distortion or artificially price increasing by the cartelization experiments of the arhatiyas. So what this leads to, it leads to a genuine price discovery which is done by the markets, right? Then the enam leads to quality certification, warehousing and logistical support to the farmers. And lastly, it creates a kind of efficient and new horizons with respect to supply chain and supply of the rare products, quality products to all the parts of India. So these are the key advantages that are there with respect to enam. Now moving on, the second topic that was taken that day was with respect to cocoa production. The key takeaway point is that Andhra Pradesh is the leading cocoa producer in India. The major cocoa producing districts of Andhra Pradesh are Western Godavari, East Godavari, Krishna, and we'll see the growing conditions and so on and forth, we'll see and correlate why these districts must be having certain features or altitudinal climatic features which are there, which incentivize the production of cocoa. Then Vizag, Visakhapatnam, right? So what are the, let us see the key facts or key issues with respect to the production of cocoa. In fact, you just, if you have watched that video, kindly tell in the comment section which is the first ranked country in the production of cocoa, and what is the rank of India in the India की rank कितनी है, and then which is the first ranked country in the cocoa production. Is it located in Africa, or is it located in Southern America? Just tell me in the comment section. Okay. So what are the climatic requirements? Altitude requirement of up to 300 meter. Rainfall that is required is up to 90 to 100 meter. Usually these kind of facts are not asked, but there might be some question in which let us say they frame 3 to 4 statements, and then they'll ask what are the statements, how many of the statements are given in the above statements are correct or incorrect. So you should have a confidence on the growing conditions as well, right? Then the temperature range is 15 to 39 degrees centigrade, optimum temperature being 25 degrees centigrade for the growth of cocoa. Again, the rainfall should be well distributed and irrigation is needed in the dry periods, right? What is the soil requirement for the production of cocoa? Pardon me. The soil required is, the soil should be deep, well drained soil. The pH should be basic, below 7. Sorry, pH should be, tell me, acidic, right? Clayey loam and sandy loam is preferred. And then there is a requirement of shade for this particular product, right? So hilly tracts are preferred very well for the cocoa production, not very high altitudinal peaks, but hilly, hilly regions are preferred for the cocoa production. Why? Because it has got a shade requirement. We'll just discuss the concept of what is shade requirement. Right. So let us say this is a tree. Let us say this is a coconut tree. This is a tall tree, and then below it, this is a cocoa tree. Now this tree, this is sunlight, right? So this sunlight is protecting the cocoa tree from direct sunlight. Okay. So 50% availability of light means out of 100% sunlight, if 50% also reaches to this cocoa plant, that much is sufficient for this tree, right? So ideally it is grown alongside some taller varieties, let us say coconut or some other tall variety of trees, right? For understory crop, this again, this same concept is called as understory crop, because this is under this particular growth of this particular crop. And then areca nut or coconut is suited for the plantation along with cocoa tree, because the cocoa tree only requires up to 50% of sunlight. The rest can be taken up by the other tree, that is cocoa or areca nut, and it will thrive only at the up to 50% of sunlight. Then we took up the issue with respect to NALSA. What are the key takeaways? You tell me how and where does it draw its constitutional validity. Article 39A of the Constitution says that there should be a provision for free legal aid to the poor and indigent sections of the society. What are the key takeaways from the article? What are the functionings of NALSA? We'll discuss in very brief. It frames a scheme for the providing legal services to the weaker sections of the society. So back then it was set in around 1980s, that poor people are very much getting separated from the notion of justice. There is no justice in the society for the poor people. So what we needed was establishment of NALSA, so that it could be there could be a provision for free legal aid to the poor people. Then it also undertakes social justice litigation, especially with respect to India. What we call as one of the examples, it could be class action suits with respect to, let us say, industrial disputes, labor disputes, dispute between labor and particular industry, and so on and forth. Issues with respect to transgenders, even that was particularly asked in your preliminary examination. It lays down policies and guidelines for the Legal Services Authority, which work under NALSA. States have their State Legal Services Authority, and then the third cell is District Legal Services Aid Authority, and in some states, even at taluk level, taluk legal services authorities are being set up. It also ensures free legal service. They also organize lok adalats and legal awareness camps. What does lok adalat lead to? Lok Adalat leads to speedy and hassle-free justice delivery, which comes at the cost of litigationer or petitioner friendliness, and this in turn leads to speedier resolution of disputes. Then it provides for free legal aid and trains social workers and legal skills because there is a lack of awareness with respect to legal profession and laws in India. So it also takes out the humble job of educating the social workers in the legal skills. Then moving on, the last one being promote research in legal services for the poor. Then again, it also carries out function for encourages citizens for commitment of fundamental duties, not just rights. As Gandhiji said, that rights and duties are interlinked. If you perform your duties, you are entitled for your rights, right? So not just it provides awareness about the fundamental rights, but also it also brings in provisions with respect to fundamental duties. Then monitor and evaluate legal aid programs and grants for specific schemes to social services institutions and authorities. And lastly, it also coordinates and monitors legal services organizations, various legal services organizations, and their functioning. The last topic of the week that was taken by Vidushi ma'am was with respect to energy transition. Energy means we all discussed with respect to in the previous slides as well. energy basket of India is primarily composed of coal based energy, let us say, right? That is traditional source of energy. And then what we are talking about is that with respect to energy, we are talking about transition from what? Coal to, we are talking about coal switch. We want to end the usage of coal in the energy basket of India, and we want to switch towards cleaner and greener fuels, right? So we also discussed in this context what is the syllabus, what is the location of this particular topic is located in General Studies paper 3, technology, economic development, sorry, biodiversity, environment, right? And then into 2018 there was a question, pardon me, there was a question with respect to energy transition. The question was, access to affordable, reliable and sustainable and modern energy is the sine qua non to achieve SDGs, the sustainable development goals. Comment on the progress made by India in this regard. So whenever you read questions, so there are two parts to a question. First one being a statement part. So here if we read, the statement part is this first part. Access to affordable, reliable and sustainable modern energy is the sine qua non. Sine qua non means prerequisite, right, to achieve sustainable development goals. ठीक है भाई, this is a statement. Now in the context of this statement, what is the operating part of the question? The operating part is comment on the progress. Now here comment means you have to pass a comment, whether it has succeeded or not, what are the limitations, to what extent we were able to satisfy or justify our initiatives. On the progress made, what we have to make a comment on what has been the progress. We just not only we have to tell about progress has been made or not, but we also have to pass a comment on it, whether it is sufficient progress, whether is it insufficient progress, till what extent success has been achieved and what else remains to be achieved, right? For example, like that. So made in this context. So whenever you read PYQs, you read two things: what is the primary portion, what is the context from which question is drawn, and then after that what is the operating part of the question. So these infographics show about the energy basket of India. You see this humongous portion, that is a portion of 53%, 53.5% of the energy is drawn from coal or coal based power plants. Then 24% is the share of renewable energy, 12% is hydro, 6.68% is gas based, right? So because we need to move towards cleaner and greener fuels, we need to change our electricity matrix or electricity basket. In 2010 the basket was like this. This is traditional, this is renewable. By 2020 we were able to make a progress. Earlier it was only 16% and 84% was traditional and 16% renewable. In 10 years, 10 साल में this 16 became 23. That means 16 to 23, 7% increase, right, by 2020 in 10 years. And our ambition is that, our lofty ambition is that by 2030, अभी क्या चल रहा है 2030, 2024, in 6 years we'll reach from where 23% to 50%. Maybe it might be possible, we'll need efforts. That is why they said the question, the operating part of the question was comment on the progress, whether the progress has been really made or not, or it is just an eyewash, right? Now in this context, just quickly see what are the steps taken, right? What are the steps taken? Comment part I would leave it to you. You exercise your mental faculties and draw conclusions whether these steps are confident and praiseworthy or not. We'll just enumerate the steps that are taken. right? So the first step is that government has allowed 100% FDI in renewable energy. Now it is for you to question whether this FDI has changed something or not, whether it has changed something on the ground level or not. That is part of your application of mental faculties and giving a comment over here, right? Then waiver of ISTS charges. Then the third one is with respect to renewable purchase obligation trajectory declared up to 2030, that there will be an obligation on discoms to purchase certain portion of their product, portion of energy only from the renewable energy matrix. Then ultra mega renewable energy parks, just like ultra mega thermal nuclear power plants, ultra mega dams, mega dams. Now we are going towards ultra mega renewable energy parks, and in this context there are various national parks which have been a part of UPSC's prelims inquiry as well, that the which park is located, which solar park is located in which particular state. So three prominent states with respect to solar parks are: one Andhra Pradesh, most important being Gujarat and Rajasthan, and then also Andhra Pradesh, right? Then government schemes have been taken as steps. For example, PM Kusum, solar rooftop phase 2, and then phase 3 schemes have been taken. And recently, you'll tell me which scheme was uh, recently given a green flag by the Prime Minister of India. Just name it that particular scheme in the comment section. Then there is a green energy corridor scheme for new transmission lines and substations for renewable power evacuation. Why? Because this thing we addressed in the parent video, that not renewable energy ka production is one aspect, but equally challenging aspect is its distribution, right? So distribution is decentralized. So distribution takes up a lot of effort when it comes to renewable energy, distribution and storage. So these are the aspects that we covered in the parent video. So for addressing that particular aspect of distribution and storage, the government has come up with green energy corridor scheme, in which particular corridors, dedicated corridors will be built for the transmission of green energy. Why a dedicated scheme is required? Because no precedent is there. We have to build a scheme or line from scratch, right? Skill development programs aimed at creating a skilled workforce for renewable energy products, just not manufacturing but handling, implementation, operations, and most importantly maintenance is required. And then in this particular segment, both skilled and semi-skilled workers are required. So particular a specialized kind of skill development is required. For example, if we go if we talk about wind sector, wind turbines ka disposal in itself is a very huge challenge. So in the future, you might also see industries growing around the concept of creating some kind of asset or disposal of these particular solar panels or windmills, right? So the fans of windmills also required a kind of particular disposal, for which as of now there is no industry in India. Then there is a dedicated scheme with respect to promotion of wind energy. Then for it we give custom duty exemption. Then generation based incentive are also given with respect to wind energy, and technical support, specialized technical support. And for that, a dedicated center in Chennai has been set up, right? And then lastly, I was just asking you this particular question, that government schemes with respect to solar rooftop and everything has been announced in the past also. Then but recently Prime Minister has given a green flag to PM Suryoday Yojana. So what, if you have to comment upon it, what will you say? What you'll have to offer some kind of examination, that whether the schemes are very well placed and very well intended, but what is the status of implementation on ground? So obviously in 10 years, if we were able to grow only 7%, How are we expected to grow from 23 to 50%, that is 27% close to, uh, in the next 6 years? That is a point of like question for you to first assess and then answer, right? That would be all for today. We'll meet the next time. Till then, happy studying. Thank you for the session.